Welcome to the SIWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here again with our guest mentor, Ellie, and we thought we'd do something a little bit different where we wanted to combine a few topics together and chunk them up into little kind of minisodes is what we're calling them. So we wanted to be under the broader topic of kind of the Odyssey. So for the folks that are aware, they've started adding some new life stages after kind of childhood, teenage years, and before you get to the adult stage, they've added this Odyssey type time stage where a lot of people are figuring things out. And we thought we'd get into three major topics. We'd get into learning how to self-advocate. We were going to get into dealing with adversity. And the last one is just adulting, right, in general. So we thought we'd kind of break it down into those three topics. So I'm excited to have Ellie here to chat about all three topics. So why don't we just get into learning how to self-advocate. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about what that even means and why is that important?
Thanks, Luki. So when we were putting together these topics, I was trying to think about what themes would make a lot of sense and really resonate with especially young people, folks who are, finding their way through the world. And one of the things that came to me was self-advocacy, which in a nutshell means standing up for yourself and acting in a way that aligns with your values. A really easy way to think about self-advocacy is, when you're younger and your mom makes all your appointments for you at the dentist.
Sure.
And then when you get older, you need to make your own appointments at the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not only that, like you need to start, acting in a way that your parents aren't going to help you, hold your hand through every step of life. And you need to do things that are hard, like saying no to people or asking people for things that is kind of uncomfortable to ask for. So self-advocacy is, acting on your own behalf with your best interest in mind. And we all need to learn and practice how to do that.
Yeah, I guess when you're growing up as a kid, standing up for yourself is more like standing up to bullies, right? That sort of thing in the playground when people are picking on you. But self-advocacy is something that throughout life, as you grow up, as you enter the working world, and as you become an adult, you need to learn to do things on your own. As you said, booking your own dentist appointments and things like that is definitely one thing where hopefully you're not calling mom and dad in order to do that all the time. But it also has a lot of application in the working world where things like asking for a raise, negotiating salary, and then to your point about saying no, right? It's understanding boundaries where if your boss is piling along a whole bunch of work and different activities, different tasks onto your plate, well, can you say no is a good question. So how was your experience in kind of self-advocacy? So what was kind of the experience that you had in maybe university and then transitioning into the working world? What were some of the things that really stood out to you as kind of, oh, I need to do this on my own?
Yeah, great question. In university, I would find that people often needed things from me. And I had my first forays into self-advocacy when I needed to start saying no to people. For example, if I worked out at the gym a lot and folks would ask me for free like training in the gym.
Okay.
And being a full-time university student, I don't have time to do that. And I certainly don't have time to do that for free. And so it was uncomfortable for me to advocate for myself and say, look, I totally support you and your fitness endeavors, but I don't have time on my plate to take on personal training for you. As I got older, it's also tricky because in your professional job, you get paid to work in a team and people rely on you, but you still need to advocate for yourself in order to do your best work that's aligned with your actual responsibilities in the job. So what I mean by that is that in a corporate culture, sometimes folks will, ask things of you that you just simply don't have time to take on. And that's okay. And so the whole point of self-advocacy is to reflect on what your goals are, what's most important to you, or most important to, the job that you're trying to do at hand, and acting in a way that aligns with that. So that could be saying to your colleague, I'm really sorry, I can't help you with that this week, but let me refer you to somebody who might have the answers that you're looking for. Things like that.
Yeah, and I find that working with your colleague is a little bit easier because they're kind of peers and they're kind of at the same level where you can kind of punt it off and maybe defer it to next week. What about when it's your boss and someone from at a more senior level is asking you to do something? Do you have any thoughts or techniques on what you've learned over the years to kind of put those boundaries and say that no without saying no?
Yeah, as a young person, it's very difficult. There's a lot of pressure, cultural workplace pressure to defer to people who have more experience or people who have a different title, like a manager. It might be scary to say no to a manager. And so in terms of my tips, I would say have a strong understanding of your own goals. For example, I can't say no to somebody who's asking me to do stuff if I don't even know what's on my plate. If I know that I have a project, for example, that's highest priority and I need to spend, my focus time to work on that, that gives me a legitimate excuse to say, I'm really sorry, but I need to focus on XYZ priority. I can't help you with your task right now. So self-advocacy starts with understanding your own goals and what's most important to you in order to give other people a response, either yes, I can help you, or no, I can't. And also about learning how to not just say flat out no, but give them an alternative, either referring them to somebody, referring them to a resource, or potentially scheduling something with them at a later point in time when you're less busy.
Yeah, for sure. That was a lesson that I had to learn early on. And one of the techniques that someone had taught me was similar to what you mentioned, where, well, if you know exactly what work that you have to do, and your boss comes in and says, okay, I need you to drop all things and work on this project. Well, that's one thing. But the other part is when you know what you have to do, you can basically say, okay, I have these 4 other things that I need to do. Are you okay if I do them later, right? And if it's from another partner, another manager, another whatever, then you can have the same discussion. Would you be able to talk to this manager, this person, and let them know that your task is taking priority and their work will be delivered later, right? And then once in a while, we have the situation where, well, they all need to get done at the same time, and they're all asking you to kind of buckle down and work a little bit of overtime and extra hours. And sometimes that happens, but if that's a chronic thing, then you just want to watch out in terms of the work environment, because that's not a place where you can necessarily be sustainably working that much, and you might be victim to burnout later on. So just be aware of those things. But I think that's definitely important.
So
what about
not just about checking in with other people, but checking in with yourself is what you're saying.
Yeah, for yourself, and to your point about knowing what's out there, and then really giving them an offer to say, okay, I have all these things to do. It all needs to get done, and you have different kind of managers and people controlling kind of your workload. Well, you can ask them and reach out and fight amongst themselves, so to speak, in terms of who gets you as a resource in order to do the work. One of the things that I found challenging, kind of moving up the ranks, was voicing my opinion, right? So you're kind of the low person on the totem pole, so to speak, the newbie that's joining, and a whole bunch of senior, more expert opinions are in the room. How do you voice your opinion, voice your thoughts, and your insights into a meeting when there's a whole bunch of smarter people, more experienced, more senior people than you?
That's scary, isn't it? It's terrifying. The fear of being judged. You can start small. If it freaks you out way too much to ask a question in a room of 30 people, can you start to bring up your opinions in a group of 3? Try to start small and build it up from there. It's like a muscle. You have to flex it in practice.
Yeah, I found a couple of techniques that helped is one, when you start a meeting, always have the intent to say something in the meeting, right? And sometimes it's just picking out what someone said and just echoing it and phrasing it again. So, I just want to confirm that you meant blah, 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 blah. just restating that. So it kind of gets you into that muscle of speaking out to begin with. And then when you have to actually put in an opinion or a different perspective, the way that I encourage folks to think about it is from the perspective of curiosity, right? So instead of just saying that's outright no and that's wrong, right? Well, could you clarify a little bit more about this? Because my understanding is something else and different. And when you approach it from a perspective of curiosity, it often goes a little bit better because sometimes they have different information. Sometimes they have more information. And with that information, you might actually make the same decision as they did. But because you're limited to whatever you have, then you have a different opinion. So those are a couple of things which I found helpful in order to kind of voice your opinions in a more senior room.
Yeah, and I'll just add one quick point to that, which is the juniors in a company often have more experience doing certain things, like, for example, a certain type of technical thing. And that's very valuable to seniors. So as a junior, you can use that experience. For example, like in my work, I've been able to use experiences that I've had working on other projects, bring it to the table for the current project and say to the manager, hey, this is how I did this for this other project. Do you think that could work today? And more often than not, they'll consider it and go, oh, hey, it's a good idea. I didn't know that you had that experience. And so offering to be helpful is always appreciated.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of useful tips from the professional sphere. I'd love to kind of get your insights in terms of that more personal one where you had that friend that was asking you to work out and can you do that for free? What are some of the kind of tips and tricks that you can have in order to help put them down on the lighter side so they don't feel bad in terms of you not taking on that additional work?
Yeah, a soft letdown is to reiterate what my own priorities are. So not saying that I'm not going to hang out with you because I don't like you. It's not about that. But it's just, I'm sorry, I can't take this on because I only have so little time to do, my own things in the gym. And then redirecting them. So instead of saying, I can't help you and I won't help you, like good luck, then to say, hey, here's some resources for you that might be helpful. Here's a really helpful YouTube channel or something like that, or here's another person you should speak to. I know I'm speaking about an example about personal training, but the same could apply to something like tutoring or any other skill that you want, that somebody is like asking you for, some sort of coaching. The same applies for that.
Yeah, and I think that's one where you want to be accepted by your friend group for sure. One of the things that seems like a strange example to come to mind is sometimes in university, people want to copy your notes, copy your work, that sort of thing. How do you let them down in that regard? Or have you come up with any interesting strategies to help you in those areas?
You need to set a personal boundary that aligns with your own goals. For myself, if somebody were to ask to, copy all of my assignment, for example, then I would just say, sorry, that's not what I give out. I don't give away that information. And again, like you need to know where your own line in the sand is to be able to tell other people no. So it's nothing about, I don't like you, I won't help you. A softer response is always, sorry, I can't do that because that's not aligned with my priorities.
For sure.
And it takes practice. It really takes practice. It's awkward. It's hard, especially for younger folks. I recognize that so much. But it will help so much in your personal life if you start to flex this muscle when you're earlier on in your professional life.
Yeah, and one additional note on that is to make it about them as well, right? To say, you know what, if you do this, then you're not going to be learning and you're not going to be getting the education, and then you're going to have to keep doing this for the rest of your career. And then when you get out into the workforce, what do you think is going to happen? So if you kind of play that out and help them to understand that it's for their own good for them to be doing the assignment, then it often helps. But as you said, it's not necessarily an easy discussion, but sometimes it's a discussion that needs to be had. So I think that's a lot of useful information about self-advocacy, and hopefully folks are able to take some of these tips and tricks and apply it to their own.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.